Into the Spiderverse tells a story of facing imposter syndrome without ever mentioning it explicitly.
And I should not do that.
Imposter syndrome refers to recurring doubts that one's accomplishments are fraudulent or undeserved. Spiderverse addresses this in all of its illogical complexities through narrative parallels and visual hints, making it one of the film's essential messages. Here's how they do it. It begins with the school. The first part of the film doesn't just introduce us to Miles, it prepares us to understand his later struggle. However, there's a level of concealment. The scenes at Brooklyn Vision's Academy seem to present a familiar adolescent interpersonal difficulty, the kid at a new school who has trouble making friends and fitting in. Situating the sequence into the film as a whole reveals that the greater problem is intrapersonal. It's not that Miles doesn't belong at Vision's Academy, it's that he feels like he does not deserve to belong. Imposter syndrome usually involves minimizing personal responsibility for achievements, and Miles emphasizes his being admitted due to the lottery, and not because of his own abilities as reflected on the entrance exam.
I'm only here because I won that stupid lottery.
He hides his talent in academics, hoping to return to Brooklyn Middle, where he feels a sense of ease and belonging. The expectations of the new school cause him to shrink away, even though he clearly has what it takes to succeed. This interpretation applies to the spray paint in the subway. Miles is shown in his element, but not to emphasize the dichotomy between logic and artistry or the things he has to do and the things he is passionate about. Rather, he revels in creative expression because unlike his performance in school, it does not measure his worth as a person. There are no evaluations to meet and no need to meet some metric. He cannot be an imposter because there's nothing for him to live up to in the first place. In other words, there are no expectations. His academic misgivings then take a backseat to the plot it was preparing us for as he puts on the suit. The hero-to-be is flung into a new world, now bearing the weight of a promise, superhero status, and the fate of the city. Imposter syndrome goes into overdrive, illustrated beautifully with something that is always visible, but almost never mentioned in dialogue.
Most superheroes don't wear their own merch.
The other spiders show us what a suit should be. It's a perfect fit. Even when Peter B. Parker adapts his suit to new life circumstances, the unity between the suit and its wearer is maintained. In contrast, our protagonist gets his disguise in plastic packaging, and the M doesn't stand for Miles. The designers and animators did an incredible job reminding us at every turn how poorly fitting his suit is. The sleeves are much too short, it's too high up on his waist, the mask is baggy with a pattern that doesn't match up at the seams, and the back continuously exposes a white t-shirt where the suit doesn't close up all the way. The conspicuous cutout holes not only set him apart from the other superheroes, they also betray the trepidation in his eyes as he encounters situations he's unprepared for. The suit reflects his feeling of being an imposter. He cannot help but feel like he is only a fake, thrust into this role through an accident of fate, and wearing a suit that doesn't belong to him. Another frequent sign of imposter syndrome is the feeling of being utterly alone with these doubts. Although the Spider-Verse opens a chance for the exalted and solitary heroes of multiple worlds to meet others just like them, Miles is positioned as a half-participant, separated from the rest not just by his costume, but his inexperience and inability to contribute. He comes to believe that the more experienced spiders mean well, but do not properly understand his condition. With his problems now well established, Miles climbs out from his abyss and towards the summit. Just as often happens in real life, it is not one single thing that helps Miles extricate himself, but the confluence of several developments. One is becoming more sure of his powers. Imposter syndrome is often completely unrelated to someone's actual level of performance, but for Miles, it is essential to have some successes at being Spider-Man so that he can later more confidently step into the unknown. Another crucial factor is realizing that he is not alone. Gwen reassures him that she too struggled in rising to her newfound responsibilities, and later, each of the spiders in turn shares how apprehension and loss are not weakness, but part of the experience of being a superhero and of being a person. Imposter syndrome, contrary to its name, is not something defective about an individual. There's a broader imposter phenomenon, shared by many and that can be overcome together. The final breakthrough comes from Miles' father. It is easy to forget that his dad thinks he is only talking about the school situation from the beginning of the movie, but of course what he says is perfectly applicable to becoming Spider-Man. The two story threads are woven into one, as his father admits that his expectations are not meant to be a hurdle to be crossed, but rather follow from a hope that Miles can express the potential within him that existed before he was ever bitten. The journey of coming to terms with imposter syndrome reaches its climax when Miles metaphorically and literally frees himself from the webbed restraints in a new surety of purpose and confidence in himself. This storyline is then resolved in a scene lasting only a few seconds. Miles goes back to the shed, and reaching for the log, his self-acceptance is confirmed externally and instantly for the first time. He is Spider-Man.